We back.
All right, back into it. Back into another episode of Money Matters. I'm your host, Josh Zabak.
And Cesar Romero, your co-host, world famous.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe
Almost.
one day.
If I say it enough.
Do you want to be world famous?
Not really, actually. No.
That would kind of suck. Couldn't go out anywhere or do
Can't
anything.
do nothing, dude.
Yeah. It's like the verge of making too much money. Do you make it over fame or do you make it over, fame and smarts or just smarts? Become an unknown.
Right. An unknown rich person.
Yeah.
Unlike Elon Musk.
Yeah, I know. Did you
That's
see
too
what he
much.
was doing today?
No.
Giving out $1 million for anybody that signs a petition. It's like, I don't know what petition it is, but I signed it.
I want to go sign it.
It's that bad to say. And then I found out I wasn't one of the states that qualified.
Damn.
It's like, man, if I get pulled, I'll move to that state to qualify to get my mill.
Right?
Man.
So, yeah, man, here we are. We're going to cover some stuff today. Always talking about money, always trying to help people get their money right, get their mindset right, do a lot of things. And there's just a lot of stuff that I've been either seeing online or the people that have been asking me, And so, like I said, man, there's a lot of things that I want to talk about and get your opinion on, right? Because I have a lot of ideas and things that I'm doing and stuff. So I always want to kind of hear what someone else is thinking. So one of the things, man, that I've kind of been dealing with myself, I think a little bit, and a lot of people deal with, especially if you're an entrepreneur or trying to start your own business, is just feeling mentally drained, man. Like, sometimes you just get to that point where you just feel like mentally you're at your limit. And I think a lot of people out there are looking of like, what do you do or what can people who are already successful do? So I kind of wanted to ask you, man, like, what do you do or what is your process for when you're feeling mentally drained from all the, running your businesses, doing the podcast, setting up, helping other people, their businesses up? Like, what do you do when you're feeling mentally drained?
I mean, the first thing is I have an outlet to prevent myself from being mentally drained every day. The last thing that you want to do is let it build up and, get to the point that you're like, okay, I'm done. And then where are you at? Especially if you have to be attentive to the businesses around you and what you're doing every day. So having an outlet separate from work, having on and off hours, I think is one of the biggest things that I'll say like the hustler mentality, every day, no matter what, if you have to work 14 hours, go get it, go get it, go get it. That gets overwhelming and you burn out. And then if you burn out, you're really no good to anybody. I think it's kind of like even when people try and work through being sick. It's like, okay, well, if you're sick and it can be physically or mentally, you have to take a step back. You have to be willing to be like, okay, if I push myself beyond the point that I'm at now of, being able to take any more mental fatigue or, again, back to a physical sickness, it's not going to be advantageous for you to be in a position of power, especially where you can affect others if you're not in your full 100% mode. So having that separation from work, being able to separate it, like I was starting to say, the hustler's mentality of go, go, go. I'm like, I set business hours now, and people call me after my business hours. You can call it being a crappy business guy, but it's like, I don't want a business that I have to attend to 24/7. I want to have those normal hours. I used to remember going, in the long sales drives when you'd have your 7 o'clock appointment and you're 2.5 hours from home and you have a 3-hour pitch. You're not getting home till past midnight and you just accept it. And I used to always envy the people that would wake up early in the morning, and be done work at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And I'm like, man, I kind of want to do that. So that's big thing about having your own business, though. However you feel and whatever helps you, you can structure that business around yourself.
Right. No, and I think that would go back to time management and setting. Like that was, I think, one of the best things that I have done for myself is set an hourly, I'm working for myself, working on my business, doing a lot of things to still give myself a schedule and hold myself to that. And like you said, when work is done, leave it be done. Set your time aside. Like to me, relaxation and chilling time is just as important as the hustle time.
Oh, 100%.
They coincide. And so you got to balance that out. You got to find that good balance. So, yeah, man, I think that's good. I think that's like the number one thing for anybody out there, who's feeling mentally drained, wanting to start their own business, got to manage that time.
Yeah. Manage that time and manage yourself. Because, again, only you know how you're feeling.
Right.
You know how I watched this thing. I forgot which guy said it, but it was something that came across, and it was like the top 5 things people that were dying wish they had done differently. And one of the things was actually portraying their real emotions to people, being honest with how they feel in that moment. I also watched this guy, he was a business owner, and one of the ladies that worked for him sent in, a health request basically to be off for the next week because she was mentally fatigued. And she put it in a group email, and he actually responded positively to it. He was like, I wish everybody could do this. I wish everybody would think of it that, again, physical and mental, sickness is kind of the same thing. And if you're not at your 100%, you're not doing anybody a favor, especially if you're in a position of defining your own future, not working that 9 to 5, not working the hourly, not putting yourself in a position that, and I hate to say this, but that you make so little that you're obligated to go to work every single day. And, it takes a hustle to get to the point that you can shut that off in yourself, but having a healthy ritual is important.
Yeah, I agree, man. I definitely agree. Got to find that good balance of the time. Got to find that good balance of, the money you're making, the money you want to make. And then moving forward to like other things, man, that I've just been seeing out there that are in one way or another relevant, right? To managing your time, managing your money. Like, someone the other day asked me, if I'm a money guy, if I'm a financial guy, why don't I drive a fancier car?
Mm.
And it brought me back to that point where I used to think like your car does say a lot about you, right? Like, people pay attention to what you drive and things like that. And so this is probably something where we might have like different opinions or at least where I used to think, yeah, it does say a lot about you. And then if you fast forward to now, it's like, well, not so much, but at the same time, I think that because of other people's perspectives, that the vehicle that you drive does say a lot about you or can say a lot about you. So what do you think, man, as far as like everybody out there, normal people, not business owners maybe necessarily, but your average person, right? What do you think is like, let's say the car you drive or your first car says about you?
Nobody cares. It shouldn't matter. I mean, I think it's like judging a person by what they wear, and I would always say I don't like designer brands, and I shop cheap, I shop thrifty. You can get nice stuff without having to have the freshest season stuff. You can have a nice car without having an expensive car. I would argue that maybe how you take care of your car might say a little bit more about
More than
you.
the car itself.
Not necessarily even, mechanical condition, because not everybody can afford to get the repairs that they need done, but cleanliness of a car. You know, somebody, and there's old adage, it depends on every situation. They used to say the same thing about shoes. What kind of shoes you have, a man judges you by that. You can have cheap shoes, but if they're shined up, at least it's like, okay, you take care of your stuff. You can have a 1994 Honda Accord, and it can have 300,000 miles on it but be immaculate because you've taken care of it, and you can be a multi millionaire. So I don't think a car would give you insight into a person's financial future or what they hold now.
Yeah. And I think it's like a double-edged sword where like, or maybe you get older or something where you start paying attention, you realize, yeah, what someone drives doesn't really matter that much. But then there's like, I feel like a lot of people, and I even think back to myself, like where I do kind of judge somebody in one shape or form. But maybe like you said, it's more of how they keep their car,
Yeah.
right? Like if I see someone with a really clean car, I'm assuming good things about that person and vice versa. Now, what about now we are coming back to entrepreneurs or let's say in my field, right? Like, you are someone who essentially has a successful business, makes good money. What about a financial guy pulls up and he's going to try to either pitch you on his services or how good he is? Would you judge him if he pulled up in a less expensive car versus a luxury car? Would you think different? You got to be honest.
Is it still taken care of? Is it still clean pulling up?
Yeah.
No, I don't care. Because again, that says something about that person. There's people that don't like cars. There's people that might like something else and have, a multi-million-dollar art exhibit inside their own house. I mean, I've literally been to houses like that. I'll never forget, was one of the Chinese clay pot army guys. You know what I'm talking about? They
I
discovered
think so, yeah.
This guy had one in his house. He lent it to different institutions to show it off, but he had one in his house. And he wasn't driving a nice car, but you would never know that. So even if he was a finance guy, what you're saying is just because he doesn't put his money into a car makes him an unsuccessful finance guy?
So I feel like maybe a lot of people have that perspective. Now, I got to the point where I don't mind if
A lot of
somebody.
people have perspectives where free estimates are free, but nothing's free, So that's why I said perspective doesn't dictate reality.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I think that's one thing. When you ask me if I was judging the finance guy, I would judge him on what he has to say. Don't judge a book by its cover, right? Old adage. Why
Yeah.
do we judge books? That's literally judging a book by their cover.
Yeah. So yeah, man, pretty much is I think to make the long story short is like don't
You can also make the short story long. We got
Short-
time.
right.
I think we got time. No.
you know, to pay attention to different things, right? Not so much on the surface, because I feel like a lot of people were programmed or were taught in certain ways to kind of just look at what's on the surface. But even that would be a tip. Like, don't look at the car, look at how they keep it. Don't look at the house, look at how they keep it. You
Right.
know, don't look at the brands of their clothes, look at how they put it together and things
Yeah.
like that. And you can definitely tell a lot more about a person, man. And so, like I said, it's just these things that have been either come up in my radar during the week or
But
I've
actually,
heard.
hold on. I gotta just say something because you said the clothes, and I'm a known terrible dresser. So I don't think that even correlates to anything because somebody might not be into designing of clothes and stuff like that. Cleanliness is different.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
If somebody comes up to you and they're dirty head to toe and they're a financial guy and he has a suit and it's got stains all over it and it's like, come on, man,
Yeah.
put a little effort into what you're doing, right?
agree, I
think
agree.
that's the main takeaway. Cleanliness.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. So like I said, and it's these weird things that maybe seem like bouncing around, but it's what I've run into, like I said, this last week, man, that just been going out there, handling business. And like I said, I don't even mind getting that question because if somebody asks me that, then I know they're kind of still on a surface level, right? And I'm like, dude, I'm a finance guy. Like, my job is to make smart financial
Right.
decisions and then pass that along,
Right.
and not do the same dumb things.
And usually a financial advisor, because, in the sales process, you're like, oh, I got to talk to my financial advisor. I'm like, oh, you're just not trying to buy. But in reality, people that do manage their finances do think about major purchases like that. And most financial advisors will be like, is it something that you need? Is it something that you've wanted all your life? I mean, if you're at the end of your retirement, you've always wanted a Corvette and you're like, I'm splurging at the end of my retirement. I've planned for this. I've thought about this. I've thought about this for the past 20, 30 years as I've been working. Then make your purchase, right? But not everybody aspires to have the fancy car or the
Yeah, a
things
lot of
that
people kind of
It's
don't
back
care,
to image, though, right? I mean, it's vanity.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
And I think like getting to that level where you realize that type of stuff doesn't matter is a big deal. So if you take anything from this, get to that point one way or another where those certain visual or just surface things kind of don't matter anymore,
And
you
you can
learn
be tricked
to.
on the flip side because the sales perspective, and we would talk about this, is like, don't pull up in a nice car. You don't want to offer a service that's overpriced and drive a nice car because then some people, if you're not in a financial investor situation, if you're buying replacement windows or home improvements, and you're like, man, no wonder why your prices are so high. You pulled up in a brand new Lexus. You pulled up in this. So, sometimes it can be at your detriment to pull up in a nice car.
Yeah. Now what about on like an individual's perspective or a consumer perspective? Should someone watch out if their random little gutter salesman pulls up in a super nice car?
No, because again, we're literally talking about judging people off what they're driving. So what if your gutter guy pulls up in a nice car? He might have a nice car and live in a trailer.
Right.
He might literally live in a trailer because he doesn't care where he sleeps. And all his life, he's wanted that car and he's living his dream out. Let the man live his dream out.
Yep.
Is this not America?
That's
Are we
true.
not free to do what we want? That's something that I would hate, though, seriously, is when people start to judge you based on purchases that you make. They're like, oh, you got this and you got this. And I'm like, yeah, but we're not sitting here having you tell me what you have, or maybe I can't see what you have.
Right.
Maybe you have something far greater than what I have. And is it about what anybody has? I think that's where people mess up in life. They worry about the haves and have-nots instead of just worrying about having fun. And it can be like a really simple mindset to have, but it's just like if you just approach your day and just have fun every day, just roll with it. Don't worry about other people unless you're in a position that, you have to make a decision based off that person. But again, there's plenty of other indicators. That gutter guy, wouldn't you want to deal with a successful gutter guy?
Yeah, I like
Whoa.
dealing with successful
Like, would
people.
you want somebody off the back of their truck that has, beer cans dropping out their pickup truck? And you're like, oh, I know I'm going to get the best price. Remember, my dad had this picture. It said, home of the lowest bidder. And the guy had, beer cans and stuff falling. It was like a drawing, but it's a joke. But back to vanity. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you're still judging somebody based on something, and it's never a good thing.
Yep. No, I agree, man, 100%. So yeah, no. So the last thing, man, that like I said, I had jotted down in my notes that someone had asked me about over this week, and I always have my answers and things like that I give to people, but I always love to give people a second idea or a second opinion on everything. So I'm gonna ask you a question, then I'm gonna tell you tell them a little bit about who you are and why they should listen, and then you can go ahead and give me your quick answer. So what I'm asking is for brand new entrepreneurs. I'm talking about your people barely getting their LLCs and things like that. What would be their first one or two steps to building credit for their business? Now, why would anyone listen to us or watch us or you right now is, my friend here, Josh, he's a successful business owner, has been owning a business that is now running for over 5 years, produces, what I consider a good amount of profits, and all in a very fair way. So that would be the question, like I said, for anyone out there who's just barely starting out. I mean, they just are really starting out on their own. They have no idea what would be their first one or two steps to start building credit for their business.
I mean, a Duns and Bradford number, DMB number. And the way that you get that is you just literally go onto a website. We'll post it up. I don't recall it off the top of my head. I think it's like dmb.com, and you register your business. And then from there, you have to deal with somebody that can establish a credit line for the business. I was fortunate enough that one of the glass suppliers actually reported to them. So I was able to get, a cash account, and they started at least reporting some of that. And then it evolved into a credit line, and then being able to separate your personal credit at some point in time. And it does take, a little bit of time to build that, year and a half, 2 years, and actually using it. Unlike a social security. Well, exactly like a social security, you can have it, but if you don't use it, you're not building credit.
Okay.
So sometimes people are so afraid of credit, but there's benefits to using it. And one of the main benefits is building the credit from your company. So eventually it can be off your personal credit. And you're not a personal guarantee of that company, and the company's standing on its own 2 feet. And then the next thing would be sometimes there's tax benefits to it. One of my glass cleaning machines initially, whenever I first got into it, I was going to hand clean glass with the units, and that's not something people typically do, but it does avoid, $50,000-$60,000 glass washing cost. And at that time, I could have bought it. I could have financed it. I had credit on my own. I could have did that. But it was beneficial to actually lease it for the business, and then that gave me tax deductions and all of that kind of stuff that I wouldn't have had if I would have did otherwise. So I think a lot of people are just afraid to use it, and they don't understand that if you don't use it, you're never going to build it.
Right. No,
they're like,
for
why
sure.
do I need that? And it's like, well, at some point you might want to buy the building you're in.
Yeah.
One of the most wealthy business owners that I know is one that leveraged his company's leases into buildings that he then owned. He bought one, he bought two, he bought three, and then the next thing you know, he's got 10 buildings that are worth $2.5 million a piece. As a baseline, it's $25 million in commercial real estate that your company is literally paying for. So that's like the broad future plan, is to get your company to the point that it can start buying its own real estate and be self-sustaining locations.
Yeah, man. There's so many different smart ways to use debt and to use credit that taking those first steps is very important. And just real quick, that number, is it different than your essentially your tax ID that you would get for
Yes,
the
at that
company?
point, yeah, you're getting a number assigned by DMB.
Okay.
That's separate, but you will need an employer identification code, IRS registration, all that stuff to even register with them.
Cool.
So you do have to get your LLC set up and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's where at least like a lot of people are, or they get to that point because it's relatively easy to, set up your LLC and things like that. But had you never told me about DMB,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have. So for all you new entrepreneurs out there, everyone starting to look at business, we'll make it easy for you. Write the word starting out in the comments, and we'll send you the link that you can go apply for this number and start building that credit for you and your business.
And I mean, the funny thing is, you said that, starting out the company is easy at LLC, but so many people have problems with that. And there's literally companies nowadays that charge $500, $600, $700 to start out your own LLC. And I think that's one of the things I'd caution people on. You can do it yourself. You can literally just go to your state website. Again, if you need help, hit us in the comments. We'll do the best that we can to try and walk you through the process. We're not attorneys or not, but if it can save you $400 and your state fee is $120 and you're paying $600 for a service that would take you 5-10 minutes,
Yep.
maybe it's worthwhile. But a lot of people look at the paperwork and they're like, oh, it's too much. And it's like, you got to start somewhere. If you just start by printing off the prerequisites and then just slowly checking each one off as you do them, even if it takes you a couple days, starting out, every dollar counts. So I'd urge a lot of people to try and set those up themselves and not spend hundreds of dollars to have somebody do something that you could do in a couple minutes for
Yep.
free.
I agree, man. There's a lot of people out there trying to take your money for a lot of different reasons. So,
Speaking of people taking your money, there's two things I want to hit on before we close out because something crazy happened to me. And I told you I'd tell you today. I kind of briefly told you over the weekend, but I had a cell phone and I have insurance on that cell phone. And I broke it. I broke the screen. The screen wouldn't turn back on. So I filed an insurance claim. They were like, okay, go into your phone. I was like, well, I can't go into my phone. They're like, oh, we'll do it online. So I kept trying to do it online. I was trying to remove the device off my Find My iPhone. Eventually, it wouldn't work. I had to escalate. They talked me through the process. I'm like, I did it. It will not take it off my Find My iPhone. They're like, okay, it's got to be something just wrong, whatever. Just send it in. We'll mark it. So that way, because, if you have Asurion, I think is the insurance company, and you send it in and Find My iPhone's on, they won't cover your cell phone. So I sent it in. They sent me the credit. Everything was cool. I got my new phone. This is like mid-July. Yesterday, I'm sitting there. We're in October. And I get a text, and it's from like some 63 da 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 da. Looks like a UK number or something. I'll still have to check. I don't even know. I haven't even researched any of this. I more want to ask if anybody has ever heard of anything like this, because this is new to me. So the text says, and I'll literally post the text right here. You guys can check it out. It says something that this guy bought my iPhone Pro, and he sees all my text messages and my phone calls are coming through, and he can see the apps and my credit cards are on there and all this kind of stuff. And I saw it like quickly. I didn't even really acknowledge or like read into it. Just looked at it. I'm like, oh, scam, whatever. So eventually I read through the thing because it was pretty long. And I was like, well, what's he scamming for? Because like he wasn't asking for anything. He's like, I'm just telling you this because we bought your phone through this insurance company and they get sent back to China, and your phone's in China right now. And if you don't remove it, they're going to clone your phone and all of your information they'll have. So I go on Find My iPhone, and it shows my iPhone 14 Pro is in China.
that's crazy.
And I got a screenshot of that because I'm like, okay, now I know he's not making this up, because like I logged on to it separate from him, like not with him or anything. And I saw it. So I finally was able to remove a device. I don't know if it was like stuck, because he even said my SIM number transferred over, because I guess they couldn't get to the phone or something was broke inside the phone. So long story short, I finally got it removed. And I'm just like, how many people has this happened to? I'll ask you a question. Did you know if you file an insurance claim and they get your phone, that the potential for all of your information to still be on your phone exists for them to get to China?
Dude, no idea. I have not heard of that. As long as I've been messing around with phones, changing phones, doing this. To be fair, I stopped using the insurance stuff a long time ago, but like that to me is just crazy because it's a big company. It's a huge.
It's through Verizon.
Right? the crazy thing though, man, is like when you sent me that stuff, I was sitting around with like my mom and my girlfriend and stuff, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Just Josh has got this message. And they're like, well, who's dumb enough to send their phone in to an insurance company? I'm like, what do you mean? I would do it if they told, like,
Right.
if I'm trying to get it, like, and they're like, well, a lot of people, they don't send it in and you just get your new phone. And I'm like, but we're
So
not
you
talking
just
about
can't
a
use
little,
insurance.
but we're not talking about some little shop on the corner. We're
Right.
talking about Asurion, who Verizon put, the major carriers put you on with them. So you assume they're going to do what they say.
And to think that, like, I think it's true. I don't even know. I'm pretty sure Huawei is banned to use for federal contractors because the link to China and because there was security threats. So I'm like, can you have an iPhone as a federal contractor? If you're a federal contractor, reach out, let us know. Can you be in the federal government, have an iPhone, and make an Asurion claim? Because if you can and your screen is broken and for some reason it doesn't get removed or they can't take it off and it gets sent in, yeah, all that's getting captured. Would have never even thought it goes from the US to China.
Right.
It goes from there. We buy it, we break it, we send it back to
I've
them. They pull
always
the parts, it comes back to us.
kind of thought like, yeah, I wonder what they do with these phones. I always thought they just like took them apart, took all the pieces, reused them, and refurbished or whatever. But then like it was just a natural thing for them to reset them and sell them again. It never occurred to me there's some weird, crazy shit going on where like they find somebody. Oh, mostly everyone does reset their phones, but this guy didn't. So let's send it
And
over
I'm
there.
telling you, I'm an idiot. We know I'm an idiot, but I did try that. Like I kept removing it. I wish I would have never imagined this. So I would have
Right.
taken a screenshot when I kept trying to do it. I'm sure I could call Asurion and get the calls that I made to them legitimately because, like I said, I had to escalate it, and I should probably call them to be like, dude, how did they even get my? Well, I know how they got my number, but I'm like, they have to be plugging it into computers and downloading stuff and hacking in, and Apple can't even do that or won't do that, to hack into murderers' phones and stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
It's insane.
It is insane. So please let us know in the
Yeah.
comments if you know or anybody who's dealt with this. And as a matter of fact, share this, because
Yeah.
we're curious. Let people know because
That's
there might be
crazy.
people out there dealing with like identity theft and all these crazy things
And not
that have
even
no
know where
clue.
it traces back to. And it's all from them sending their phone in to Asurion through Verizon.
Yep.
Shout out Asurion Verizon. Thanks, guys. Sell my stuff to China.
Assholes.
And I know it's true because literally once it finally removed, I started getting emails from all my credit cards saying, it's been removed off your iPhone. It's been removed off your iPhone.
Sheesh.
So yeah, talking about building credit, you have a lot of credit cards. You're like, oh, and I got to go through all of that crap in business.
It's like, man, you
Sucks.
got to be careful of the salesmen that come to your house. You got to be careful with the big companies that
Of
are put
everybody.
in your face. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you can't trust
where the
anybody
trash
out here,
goes,
man.
no
Go
one
into
knows.
Stone Cold Steve Austin mode. Don't trust anybody.
On a good note, we are going to a haunted house tonight.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool because you've never really been to any.
I've never been to a haunted house like that.
The only
man.
reason I'm bringing that up in Money Matters is because shout out to the local haunted house peoples. You want to talk about small businesses? These aren't corporations typically that are doing them. These are really good places that you can go have fun with the family and kids. A lot of people haven't had that experience. I'd say it's the time. It's almost Halloween. If you got a local haunted house, go support them. Check them out.
Yeah, for sure, man. Always pushing helping local businesses, doing things for local,
Red
in your
Vein
local
in Ashland,
community.
Virginia. Here we come. We've literally gone 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
And the amount of money that they put into these as they get bigger and bigger, you got to buy the fast pass because unless you want to sit in line for 3, 4, 5 hours and talk about starting a business, I'm like, gosh. I watched one in Bowie that we used to go to because me and my wife have been doing this for a long time. And we'd see this one that's like starts out at somebody's house. And then they evolve into renting out the baseball stadium, the Bowie Bay Sox stadium. Like, it's crazy how big some of these get.
Yeah, no, I think I've seen like just riding around my neighborhood where people will set up something in their backyard,
Yeah.
something small, and I'm guessing, yeah, it starts off like that. You get a lot of people going, and then you know. So that's a cool, man. It's something you can definitely do to get involved with your community to help out local families, local business that they're probably putting a lot
I
of
know.
work into
The
that
funny
stuff.
thing is putting a lot of work. Sometimes it doesn't take the big pyrotechnics of Disney or, going to Islands of Adventure or these different places that do haunted house. Universal Studios, that's what I was trying to look for because I went there one time. We got the fast pass there and that was like $600 a person.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
disgusting. But people in their backyards that put effort, and they make it right. And it's awesome. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
man, I'm excited.
I think it's about time we got to go. I think that's a good place to call it.
Oh man, let's call it another good show. I can't wait for next week's show already.
Yes, sir. Back at it next week.
Peace. Bing bong.